Yeah, yeah, we're back.
Hope it doesn't go too far because sometime I might have to be off.
Okay.
But
All right. So Domenico, what do you practice on a
getting back to the sum of squares, there's one thing I wanted to ask you, and I don't know where you're going to cut this. How did you come up with the idea of putting it as a task?
Well, so it used to be part of, well, it still is. I mean, it was something that was asked at the MSO. I think it's something that's asked at the JMCWC too. So a lot of the competitors have the background with it.
Yeah, it was at the MSO semifinals this year.
Yeah, I think my guess is when they originally included it, it was sort of a way to include exact like square roots without testing directly for it, because our standard square root task is 5 decimal places. Yeah, so they have a new format, which is square roots are squares that are exact, but you have to put in a little more effort because you have to solve more than
That's actually that's a classical result in the theory of numbers, the four square theorem. So it is like the practical application of the theorem.
Yeah, and I mean there are certainly there are certainly other types of questions that could be asked as well. It's just that are but that one is one that a lot of people had experience with, so it's not new to many of the competitors. Yeah. I think the one question that we added this year that was there's 2 questions we had this year that were very new. The system of equations questions, which people didn't have experience with before, and then the abnormal sort of exponents and roots that would appear to usually require some sort of either very skilled estimating or knowledge of logarithms. Although you on some occasion, there are a couple competitors who seem to be able to attempt to solve those without logarithms, which is beyond my capability of doing.
No, I wouldn't see how to do it without logs.
I mean, yes, when you only have to know the 2 or 3 or 4 significant digits, I think that sort of that definitely influences people's strategy a lot. I mean, because some of those you can reasonably estimate. If you have 5 guesses and you only need 2 significant digits, that definitely changes like the strategy approach. Yeah. Okay. So we have Rahul 10-8. I'll have to go back and look at that video. I know Jure was getting frustrated at the beginning of the match. I wouldn't be surprised if he was disconnected and it wasn't like accepting his answer, given that it started having an error shortly after that.
Oh, okay. Even before there was the actual disconnection.
It seems possible he that may have happened. I'll have to take a look. Yeah. Okay. So these kind of questions, Rahul has a really difficult version. Jure's question, he's got some nice numbers on there. Are you normally approaching just an A times B times C times D, where the numbers are sort of reasonable and not excessively?
Try to couple them quickly so that they make everything easier. So I try to.
So you're going to multiply A times B and then C times D and then do.
Or even A times D if it's more convenient. I try to spot which couples are more convenient and have at all times factors that are not too dissimilar in order of magnitude from each other.
And then when you're done with that, are you going to do like a school method, left to right multiplication, or a cross multiplication, or
When typically, if I get say, I'm not good at all multiplication, so and I suppose whatever you use is more efficient. But typically, when I have say a couple in the end, it might be like 4 times 4. I would do a cross multiplication by couples of digits, right to left.
okay. So, okay, how about the type of question that Rahul has on his screen right now? Now we have A times B times C divided by D. Are you going to are you going to multiply that out, or are we going to try to?
Usually, yes, but I would look at whether it can be factored out somehow.
Yeah.
And quite often it can.
Yes. And do you ever try to estimate those, like what Jure has
Yes,
right now?
when there's right, like does he have an 86 at the very left and 89 at the very right?
Yeah,
I could just wipe them off and remember that I have to take something slightly lower in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
It depends on how many factors you have. If it's four or four, if you have 6 or 7 or 8 factors and denominators, then approximating might be a good strategy. In this case, for example, no, it's better to, 56 and 42, that's 4 and 3. And 3 with 66, it becomes, so it was, like in this case, it was 17 times 88, if I've read them correctly.
Well, now he's got the A times B times C with 2 3-digit numbers and a 4-digit number. I think in this case, I have to try to multiply the 3-digit numbers together, and then do the 5-digit times the 4-digit, 1 digit at a time. But I'm probably not going to actually do it in 30 seconds. Okay, so he's got.
This one is yours is really difficult.
Yeah, and I think if we had one less square root in there, it might be more reasonable.
Yeah, you can work them out because you can neglect the last 4 digits and just sum the first halves of the numbers and then work it out with a decent approximation. But there's just not enough time for all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, now he's got Jure has a. I think that's too difficult.
5 3-digit numbers. That's, I don't know how many people can do that.
Yeah. Unless you, some of them. So like 2 of them are actually 2-digit numbers with a 0. Okay, how about this? 98470 to the 10th root.
Yeah, the log is 5992 or 993 because it's when it's very high, it tends to be linear.
Yeah, and he got it pretty quickly there. Without repetitive guessing, he just answered it.
It was very close to 10 to the 0.6.
Yeah. So the system of equation questions, I don't know how many of them you got during a match. Those questions, they're going up to 4 equations in the final.
Those ones are really difficult. I haven't worked out a strategy for that.
And I've seen different people trying to come up with different strategies. My instinct was to always find the equation where the coefficients were sort of one coefficient had the greatest margin over the other coefficients, so you could try to solve for one and then try to use that to see if you could solve for the others. But I think some people are, you know, looking at like the final digit and trying to, you know, use
modulo 10 or modulo 100.
Yeah. They're trying I've seen some people who seem to be trying to use that to help them solve it. But yeah, they're very, you know, if there's two equations, it's not difficult. If it's three, then it can be pretty difficult. And then in the finals, they're getting four sometimes, which are extremely difficult. Yeah.
Oh, this is easy. Rules. This one you can approximate.
Okay, so
like 75 is over 75 is like times 4 over 3, allow changing the orders of magnitude. You think of 75 as 3/4.
do you have primes memorized up to some number? Or are you
Yeah, I'm working up to 5,000, but they don't
really?
usually come, and it's not very helpful here, because if it's 5 or more digits, I have to start it over anyway.
Yeah.
But you can shorten them, and somehow you can shorten the check. And for example, the typical example, which you probably also do, if you have to check whether it's divisible by 7, 11, and 13, you can do it all at once with 1001.
Okay.
So you subtract if it's a 6-digit number, you subtract the first triple from the second, or vice versa, and you check them all at once. But the thing is, with 30 seconds, if the factor is more or less above 30, it becomes really difficult, and you just have to hope it's low.
Yeah.
Otherwise, give it a shot to see if it's a prime number, and sometimes it is.
Okay, so Rahul's got 434 to the 53 divided by 3,287.
Oh,
So it's 434. I mean, this is approximately the 61st, between 61st and the 62nd root. Clearly, this number is just over 1, which I'm surprised he hasn't just guessed.
yeah.
I maybe I misread something there. I'm not. But I think that was clearly just a 1 or a 1.1 or.
Yes, it was something, because you have a couple of zeros in the log, probably.
Yeah, I think he may have interpreted it as between the 6th root and the 7th root instead of the 60th and the 62nd. Yeah, so now he's got a factorization of an 8-digit number.
You didn't start with the
With the
double 2, because it's divided.
Yeah.
It's a multiple of 4.
How about what he has right now? Okay, you got 8 to the 5th divided by.
Is it 25 to the 5th?
25 to the 5th divided by 84 to the 3rd.
Oh, 5 to the 10th, that would be about 10 to the 7th.
Interesting. So you're gonna
10 to the 10th over 1024. It was probably between 10 and 20.
Yeah, I think it's a little closer. It might be over 20, but it's definitely, yeah, it's somewhere around there. Okay, factor 13,817. That looks like it just might be prime. No, it's not prime. Okay, so
Yeah, it's
that
nothing until 17. The problem is,
yeah, I am not good at factorization. But
mm,
from watching some of the people, I mean, I see people who correctly answer questions where there's at least one prime that is more than one prime that's like over 20 or 30. I'm wondering what they're doing, or if it's just a matter of having sort of a lot of primes memorized, or just practice doing it.
or even if you
But
have no, I don't think memorization has much to do with that because you have to try the lowest price first, or the ones that are close to the square root.
yeah, okay, so they're
I mean, in that
remaining.
case, I'm quite sure there was nothing up to 23, but there's still a long way to go up.
Yeah, yeah.
4 digits times 6 digits. Would you normally do that?
I mean, yeah. I, my cross multiplication is very good. Rahul, it's interesting that his sort of his he's not very comfortable with cross multiplication. But if you ask him to multiply like three-digit numbers, he seems quite comfortable with that. Which it's very interesting to me because most of our competitors are obviously the other way around. Um,
So do you think he does it some other way?
he's I mean at some point he's going to have to transition to cross multiplication, but he's using just the normal school method for his most of these questions, doing you know one digit times, it would be six
Mm.
4x1s to try to do the question. Although I'm not sure what he was trying to use on that particular version. Okay, so he's got another 9-digit number to factor. Um,
Oh, that's too much.
that
Yeah,
is
unless it's 2 times 2 times whatever remains or something like that.
all right. How about this one? This is a difficult
The
question.
modular one.
Yeah,
Is there
an
strategy
11.
for that? Because if the module is small, you keep subtracting, but what do you do in this case?
Well, and so when the mod is big enough, I think you find the integer component of the answer, and then you work right to left subtracting and typing as you go,
Mm.
because you don't have to worry about the carrying or revising your earlier answer as much. Um,
But this
but
one
that one
was
is
neither big enough nor small enough.
right,
The integer component
right,
had 5 digits.
yeah. Okay, Yuri has one of the MCWC surprise questions
All
from
right.
this. 58 to 53, and we're coming up here on 20 minutes. Um,
What's the minimum edge in this case?
so it's win by 5, but you have to, it's win by 50 between 20 and 40 minutes. They're going to end up going to 40 minutes, and then
Mm.
unfortunately, I'm just going to subtract out the what was already played in the previous match from the end.
Okay, so they're not going to know right away.
No, and I could if everybody wanted to wait for 10 minutes, I could go into the app and change, the ending condition so that the score advantage and the time played was built in, but it doesn't really seem necessary in this case for everybody to wait. I'm curious. Did you watch my recent little YouTube tutorial on addition?
Oh no, sorry.
No, you haven't watched it.
A pretty busy schedule.
Yeah. So yeah, let me know if you see it and what your thoughts are.
Mhm.
But it's an interesting topic because so what I did in the everybody there's like everybody believes that the Soroban has an insurmountable advantage in addition, and it appears to have that because of the ability to work with more than 2 or 3 columns, which I've never heard of a Westerner being able to add more than 3 columns at a time. But in the as part of the little tutorial, I did 5 standard addition questions in 64 seconds. So under 13 seconds per question. And what was most interesting was that my per addition speed was essentially identical to what Aryan did at the World Cup when he set the addition record. But he I'm doing 45 additions to solve the standard addition question, and he does 27 because he's doing 3 scans from top to bottom, and I'm doing 5. And my ultimate time for the task was essentially exactly 45 divided by 27 times his time, which makes me wonder whether there is truly a speed advantage to using the Soroban for addition, or whether the advantage is solely and purely an advantage in being able to visualize additional columns and then while retaining the speed that you would have, that I use for 2 columns. Which is interesting. And then that I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, but
Well,
I'm really curious to know whether if somebody without Soroban can actually devise a way to add more than 2 columns at a time.
From my own experience, when I practice Flash and Zan, I'm relatively fast with 2 digits. Well, I mean, like 20 numbers in 10 seconds is perfectly feasible for me, even something more. With 3 digits, it becomes much more difficult. Like if you compare the performances, making the speed to be inversely proportional to the number of digits, I become much slower from 2 to 3, like half the speed that I have with couples of digits. And so to me, the advantage is really the ability to handle 3, 4, or 5 digits at once, which I don't know how I could do without.
I mean, that certainly, I mean, I'm not aware of anybody who certainly can do more than 3 columns. It kind of looks like Wenzel can do 3 digit, but I'm not sure if that really has any implications for other people or not. It's an interesting thought as to whether or not there could be an alternative sort of visualization approach devised that would fit sort of Western competitors, and nobody's done it so far.
Like with couple of digits, for me, it's like a single number. So
Right.
And I suppose for you as well, like 58 plus 73 is 131, and I know that before knowing why. But if you add one more digit, I have to break it up.
Yeah, and that is sort of I believe there's some sort. I mean, there's a neuroscience reason why we can sort of work with the two digits simultaneously. But when the quantity is more than two, you can't sort of do it. I've seen videos of people who do two sets of flash hands on simultaneously, like they have two screens flashing numbers,
Uh-huh.
and they're able to do two at one time. But the and then we can sort of get our brain to do the processing two things simultaneously, which I think is why the Westerners can, everybody can comfortably do two columns, but like doing the third column, it just feels like there's a wall there that you can't get your brain to overcome, even with practice. And
Mhm.
yeah. All right, Rahul and Jure are still rather close here, 80 to 72. Another factorization. Okay, 367,877. And it's not prime. So yeah, I
It's not 7, 11, 13, 17, but then it's 19,
okay.
3.
Yeah, that is,
Yeah, that's how much, as much as you can check in 30 seconds. I mean,
yeah.
8 to 10 prime, 8 to 10 candidate prime factors. I mean, that's as much as I can check. I don't know if there's a better way.
Have you ever tried to do a cross multiplication question with more than two numbers, like A times B times C cross multiplication, or
All at once, you mean?
all at once? Yeah, all at once. So
No, I can imagine the mathematical theory behind it, but no, I've never tried.
yeah.
So you would have a first the units, then the three combinations of units times tens, then the three
Yeah.
combinations of.
And it's something that in 30 seconds, like for three-digit numbers, it's quite reasonable. But outside, once you're past three-digit numbers, it becomes very difficult to do.
Have you checked your speed doing that versus the speed in doing the first two numbers and then the product times the last one?
Right, and I think, I think for most people, it's assuming you visualize the numbers properly. The cross multiplication would not have much of an advantage. But if you're really struggling with retaining the numbers, it might help. Okay, he's got some squares 3965. He already answered it. Oh.
No, I missed.
Okay, so a question like Rahul has right here: A divided by B times C times D. Um, how much are you estimating that? Are you actually, like, when the number is like 10 to the negative fifths or 10 to the negative sixth, are you really quickly, are you trying to factor it down? Are you going to try to estimate like A divided by
I
B
would
or C or D?
try to estimate the denominator and then divide. I didn't
And
see the numbers well, but I would try the decent estimation of the denominator.
from past matches, it seems like you're generally rather good at that. Are you when you estimate? So let's say it's like how precise of an estimate are you sort of like if it's 18 divided by 53 times 67 times 87. Well that was a little bit
Yeah, I would go
easy.
for the 53 times 87, which is say 4,500 because it's slightly more than half, and then make two-thirds of that, 300,000, and then look at the numerator.
Okay.
I would look for the easiest couples to multiply. If there's anything near 1/2 or two-thirds or 3/4, or something
Okay.
close to a square.
So Jure's got one right now. It's A times B and then 3 on the bottom, but he's got some pretty large numbers here.
I can barely read it, but
Yeah, this one.
well, the second number on the left, for example, it's not much more than the 631 on the right, so that might be an estimate.
Okay.
It's really hard to read.
Do you remember if it was hard to read when you did it last year, or if it was if it's something about right now?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Do you remember last season when you did when you were at a couple matches, did you have difficulty reading it last season, or is it did we set it up slightly differently this time?
No, I probably had some difficulties reading back then.
Okay.
It's I have a small screen on top of everything, so I can see most of the numbers, but sometimes not. Rahul has taken a clear lead now.
Yeah. Well, he's got. So, how would you do this question on Rahul's screen? It's a 4-digit number times a 4-digit number divided by another 4-digit number.
I will have a hard time. I can't read the last one. What is it?
Well, the last one is 6,600, which I guess changes it in this particular case because it wasn't really, but yeah, you'd have a hard time.
Generally, I would
yeah.
have I would not make it unless it's very close to like being the double. I mean, a known fraction or something.
So, and do you on those kind of questions? Do you when you're going to attempt it? Do you ever try those do multiplication from left to right, and then you can like stop partway through the question because you don't really need to do the end of it?
I never thought of that, but that's probably because I give them up since the beginning as questions that are too difficult to be answered.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it makes sense
I
though,
mean,
because that's what I do when you have those, for example, those sums of squares with long squares. Neglect the last part.
yeah. I mean, you should be able. Yeah, if people are very, if you're comfortable doing the cross from left to right, you should be able to make an attempt. But if you don't have that, if you comfort, then it's going to be hard anyway. Oh boy, so 79 times 36 times 33 times 727 times 877.
What 36 times? Well, it's long. It's gonna be 11 or 12 numbers.
Yeah.
However you do that, it's long. Is he doing it all at once? Like
No,
every
he didn't really attempt to do it. I think it's a little bit too long. Um,
how much time do they have left? Oh, it's over there, right?
yeah,
5
so they're
minutes.
at 35 and a half minutes, so they have 4.5 minutes left. Okay, so Yuri has one that we're kind of talking about before. We have four
Oh,
two-digit numbers here.
is it
So
61 times 89?
61, 55, 89, and 17.
Yeah, I would do well. 61 times 89 is 5429 because it's 60 times 90 plus 29, and the other is 935, and then multiply them.
Okay.
Is it the same thing you would do, or would you couple them differently?
So I mean, I actually generally avoid coupling them, and I just do try to do
Cross
multiply each
multiplication all
one.
at once.
Well, not cross multiplication all at once. I would just try to. I generally just go one by one, and I usually save the most difficult number to work with for last, um, so that so that I can sort of type one digit at a time. Um, yeah, so I mean I start with the easiest two, and then I would try to multiply by the third one, and then once I get to the fourth number, I kind of can forget it as I'm going. Uh, but I really I don't yeah I haven't tried because coupling it will require me to retain two numbers instead of just one number.
Yeah.
But it keeps the number smaller.
Well, that's not difficult. I mean, I can still remember those two numbers.
So
And that's
Rahul has a
right.
4 times 5 divided by 4. Um, uh,
He didn't do it, did he?
he didn't do it, but he was making a serious attempt to do it.
Now he's getting the easy ones.
Yeah.
Oh, here is it. 6. Well, in this one way you're doing this would be to, and it's kind of weird, but you can multiply one of the first two of the two factors by 1.5, and then you would have divided a division by 99, which you can do summing couples as you go.
Yeah.
It's a very
Yeah.
Jure has fallen significantly behind, yet it doesn't look to me
Yeah.
like the kind of questions has changed.
It can make a few errors can make a huge difference. The difference between you have a couple questions where you just didn't quite get it and getting the correct answer. I know in oh they're about to end. but I know that happens, you know, in my matches, the competitive ones when I played you and when I played Jure, you know, I had tendency to make an error every 3 minutes that, you know, there's a